Welcome to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein, talking about the evolutionary, the revolutionary, the inspiration, and the perspiration, and those aha moments that change everything. And now, here's your host, Rich Goldstein.
Rich Goldstein here, host of the Innovations and Breakthroughs podcast, where I feature top leaders and the path they took to create change. My past guests include Kevin King, Rick Cesari, and James Thompson. This episode is brought to you by my company, Goldstein Patent Law, where we help you protect your ideas and products. We've advised and obtained patents for thousands of companies over the past 25 years. So if you're a company that has a product, a design you want protected, you can go to goldsteinpatentlaw.com, where there are amazing free resources to learn about the patent process. And you can email my team at welcome@goldsteinpc.com to explore if it's a match to work together. You could also check out the book I wrote for the American Bar Association that explains in plain English how patents work. It's called the ABA Consumer Guide to Obtaining a Patent. I have with me here today Tim Jordan. Tim Jordan is a very well-known Amazon seller. He is the founder of the Private Label Legion, which is a community of sellers, and he's also host of the AMPM podcast. He is the Chief Growth Officer at Seller Funding, and he sells on both Amazon and Shopify. And he's currently working on a crowdfunding project, which he's completely documenting so that he could show other entrepreneurs his path to success. So Tim, welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, and I hope it's a path to success. That crowdfunding project, one interesting thing about documenting what we do is we never know how it's going to turn out. But even if we hit snags along the way, we'll still document that because that's good learning opportunity.
Exactly. So regardless of the outcome, it's going to show the path that you took using, your best knowledge, your best resources, and the best people around you to try to gain success. And I think, as we all know, that there is no magic formula. It's like every different product is different. Every path we take is different. But the best we could do is learn from what others have done. And so you're giving people the opportunity to really learn from what your best effort is. So I think that's really cool. And I just want to roll it back a little bit. I mean, one thing I didn't mention in your bio is that you were a firefighter. And so tell me a little bit about that. I mean, how did you get to be a firefighter, and then how did you transition into Eecom?
So the firefighting thing was accidentally, it kind of happened by accident. I was in college, and I was in a small college town, and I needed money. I had to pay my way through school. There's never any money, and I also liked adventure. And I heard about this program that the fire department offered for college students to become volunteer firefighters. But they get paid. So paid volunteers. I know it's weird. And I'd never heard of this. I never knew anything about public service firefighting, but I thought, hey, if I get to wear a cool helmet and occasionally get paid for false alarms, this is great. So what they would do is they would have these college students they'd send to the Tennessee Fire Academy. They would give you, your turnout gear, and they'd give you some additional training. And for every call that you ran on, they would give you like $50. And the cool part about a small college town, there's hardly ever any legit calls. They're mostly fire alarms to the dorms at college. So people burning popcorn or setting off a smoke alarm with steam.
Maybe an occasional cat in the tree.
That's actually never happened to me. But the way the fire department worked is they had a few full-time staff, but they couldn't afford like a full-time department. So they'd augment with these paid volunteers. So did that for a couple of years, and they eventually opened up an opportunity. They were going to build a small apartment complex on the back of the fire station. And me, I was paying for room and board, and I jumped at the opportunity. So what we would do is we would basically live, me and 5 other guys, in this annex, like a dorm, but it was at the fire station. And they got to count us as full-time employees because we were at the fire station more than 40 hours a week, right? So we would go in and out. We'd go to class. We'd go out with our girlfriends. We'd do whatever we wanted. But as long as we were there, we were clocked in. So it was super cool. And when I left college, finished up, I thought, I'll never go back to this. It was fun while it lasted. Had a few cool fires, and moved down to Huntsville, Alabama, and was pursuing a regular job. And every time a fire truck would drive by, I would just be staring at it. Man, that's so cool. A real city fire department, not this, redneck hillbilly, half volunteer thing. And it was really kind of becoming a passion of mine. So I applied. There's 2,500 applicants when I applied. They only hired 25, and I was one of them. And I was actually the only one out of 25 that got it my first time around. Some of these guys I got hired with have been trying for 6 or 7 years. So it was awesome. Loved it. I got involved in like technical rescue teams and FEMA urban search and rescue teams. And I was a smoke jumper, and I was a hazmat tech. And one thing about the fire department is you work 24 hours and you're off for 48 hours. So you go in, you spend 24 hours. So essentially you work 2 days a week, and we all had side hustles. So I had a construction business, a high-end landscape business. At one point I had like 20-something employees, and I was 25 years old, 24 years old, and didn't make any money. It was a complete nightmare. It was terrible. I never paid myself a paycheck in like 4 years, but it started teaching me how to run businesses, and especially as side hustles, because I was still operating a full-time job. So I sold that company, sold all my equipment, started working with another buddy of mine who was doing government procurement. If you guys have seen the movie War Dogs, where these guys are like doing government bids for weapons in Iraq and Afghanistan, that was me, except we weren't selling weapons. We were selling dump truck tires and diesel generators and Quest protein bars and all this stuff, but it was all going to consulates, embassies, and contractor bases in Iraq and Afghanistan. And that got me into procurement, sourcing, logistics, and it also gave us a ton of wholesale accounts. Like Quest protein bars. We were buying 15, 20,000 Quest protein bars a month. We were buying 18 wheeler loads of diesel generator oil filters, every month. And by getting those wholesale accounts, I figured out, hey, we can sell this online too. That got me an Amazon, quickly led me into private label. And because I had a history and kind of experience in sourcing, procurement, logistics, private label was fairly easy for me because I had contacts in China. I knew how to ship stuff. I'd already been traveling around meeting these people. So not only was I selling online at that point, launching private label brands, but I also started a company called Hickory Flats that did sourcing and logistics. And we built warehouses in the U.S. or set up warehouses in the U.S. did 3PL. We did FDA prep. I ended up setting up a sourcing company in Central America, down in Guatemala. Pretty much done a little bit of everything. And a couple of years ago, I was able to leave the fire department after 10 years. And I would just do full-time e-commerce, and never in a million years thought I would have been here. But here I am.
Got it. And so you were doing a lot of, I guess, arbitrage, where you were buying and selling goods. You were finding an opportunity for, where someone needed a quantity of something. You sourced it, you found it, you made the connection. So basically, a lot of it was through making connections between products and need. And it was a side hustle, I guess, for quite a long time until you finally made the leap, and it's become your full-time thing.
Yeah, even when I was at the fire department, my fire department job became my side hustle. It wasn't what I was focusing on. At one point I had, the warehousing, the sourcing, the shipping. I had multiple brands. I had multiple Amazon accounts. I was doing all this crazy stuff, and I was still working in the fire department. So I would go in and I would check off my truck, check my equipment, and I would go back to my bedroom, open up my laptop, and work. Unless we got a call or unless it was mealtime or we had to go do a training thing, I was back there working. So in the mornings, it was an inconvenience for me to do my truck checks. And if we had to go do like a 2-hour training, I was mad because it was keeping me away from my real job. That's the point I realized, okay, like I'm not doing this job, I'm doing a disservice to this job. So I decided to leave, and they ended up hiring someone else to replace me and gave them an opportunity.
And now that guy is working on e-commerce stuff.
There are a number of guys that I used to work with that are now selling online, because they would sit and watch me on my computer all day doing stuff, and they'd see me go buy my wife a new car or go on these nice vacations. They're like, at first they thought it was a multi-level marketing scam or something, and turns out that it wasn't, thankfully.
Right. So they have a picture of you up in the firehouse, like you're the inspiration for.
The guys that are doing it now would never admit that they watched what I was doing.
Right.
And when you leave the fire department or leave a police department, like one of those public service things, your name is kind of thrown in the mud a little bit. I was I was not popular for leaving. You know, it was he's uppity. You know,
Right, he's too good for us.
He's too good for us. You know, he's going to go work a white collar job now. And so I've still got a lot of good friends there, but there's definitely not a picture of me on a firehouse wall somewhere unless it's got a fake mustache and darts thrown through my forehead.
Yeah, right. No, that's funny. But let's talk a bit about products. And so you've sold lots of different types of products, and a lot of it what has been kind of existing products that you've kind of found the need for, and I guess to some extent there's been a lot of Me Too, where you're selling products that exist, but you find a better way to sell it or to a better market for it. I mean, let's talk about like the difference between Me Too and when you have a differentiated product.
Yeah, and for me, it's not just about differentiated. It's about in demand with no competition. So when I first started selling, I was selling Me Too products. I was following what I call the Jungle Scout method. Figure out a product that a handful of people are selling well, and try to get on that train. You know, like I have samples of those products. Like I once sold this mechanical meat tenderizer, right? And here's another one, the veggie spiralizer slicer thing. So what I would do is I'd look at these products and say, oh, there's only 5 sellers who are selling well. I can be number 6. But by the time I went and sourced it and got it shipped and got it launched, there's 500 other listings, for the same thing. So I started realizing there's got to be a way to get it ahead of the game. So I figured out that instead of looking on Amazon, you start looking off of Amazon to get product ideas, because Amazon's slow to the market. So look at places like Pinterest, Cratejoy, Etsy, Lifehack blogs. Go to physical markets like ASD, America's Mart, Ewu in China, and find products that I can attach keywords to. So I find a product, and I don't know if it's going to be a good product or not, but I think, hey, this is interesting. I've never seen it. Go to Amazon, see if it's there, and a lot of times it's not, and then find out if there's actual keyword demand. Because if I got the coolest product in the world, but on Amazon people aren't looking for it, they're never going to look for it. So I use tools like Helium-10 and find keywords that people are looking for that they're really not being offered. If you guys want to see an example of that, go to YouTube and type in Helium-10 Project X. It was a big case study to Helium-10 where that's exactly what we did. We found and are still successfully selling 2 products, one of which really, like, there's one seller on Amazon that was always out of stock, like 10 months out of the year out of stock. Their listing was horrible. We never would have found it by looking on Amazon, but we found it on Pinterest. When Amazon realized people are looking for this thing, there's only one person selling it horribly, and they're out of stock 80% of the year. And that's one way of doing things. The other thing that I do is I do differentiate products, but I get the ideas for the differentiation off of Amazon. So the Project X product that we used as an example for that was an egg tray. All right, so wooden egg tray. I think I got one back here. So basically we went to Amazon and we found egg trays, and you set your eggs in here and you put it in your refrigerator, leave it on your counter, whatever. And they were all ceramic, they were all plastic. And there's tons of them, and they're making tons of sales, but everybody's selling them. So if you type egg tray in Amazon, that's what was offered. But if you went to Pinterest and typed egg tray, like half of the top results on Pinterest were the same wooden egg tray that wasn't even on Amazon. So we determined, hey, people are being offered this product, but they want this product. So we just differentiated to the wood one, threw it up. And I think right now, again, today we're out of stock. We'll order 500, 1,000, 2,000, and we can't even keep them in stock because they're selling so fast. They get on page 1 for egg tray, which is competitive. So it's a Me Too category, but by differentiating, we now have a unique product.
Yeah, and also it sounds like you're spotting a trend, you're spotting a difference, you're spotting a discrepancy between like what is being offered and what people are looking for.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like having a keen eye for the gap. Like you're noticing where the gap is, and that's where that's what you're going for.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah. Pretty cool. And so now in terms of sourcing and launching products, so like once you know what you want, where do you begin to start to find how to get that actual product so that you could sell it?
So it depends on what the product is. There's still 90% of the world's products are being made in China. Even with COVID and the political stuff that's going on and the tariffs, and people are saying, oh, China's not going to be the source of production anymore. I think that's wrong. China's just better than everybody. The people that are tweeting out about oh, we have to stop producing in China, are tweeting on their iPhones, which are made in China. They're just better. But there are products that are made better elsewhere. Eastern Europe is getting to be popular for a lot of products. I'm personally sourcing products in India right now. It's a limited number of products, but the products that are being made there are super high quality. MOQs are super low, and you can differentiate, a little bit of the story. So it really depends on the product. More specifically, to answer your question, I use sourcing agents. People ask me all the time, like, do you use Alibaba? Do you, go and find the factory direct? There is an advantage to going directly to a factory sometimes. But generally speaking, I'm just one of a million people reaching out to these factories. And the best factories out there, especially in places like China and India, I'll never be able to find. They don't have English-speaking salesmen. They don't have export departments. They don't have good marketing departments. And I have found that the relationships that sourcing agents have, by the time they add their little markup in there, it's still the same price as it would have cost me to work directly with the factory, but it's hands off. I only have so many hours a day. There's only so much I can do. I can only be an expert at so many things, which really isn't that many actually. So I have determined that the best way for me to scale businesses is to outsource that aspect. So I have really good sourcing agents. I send requests for quotes to multiple sourcing agents for the same product. Let them, kind of battle it out and see who can come up with the best option for me. And if I pay them 10% more than if I spent all this time, energy, effort going to the factories and trying to find it myself, that's fine, because I can actually scale up faster by doing that. So when it comes to sourcing, don't limit yourself to a certain region, but use sourcing agents. I've even done U.S. manufacturing, and I've used people like Gimba to go find those suppliers for me, because it was easier to pay them to do their job and be pros at it, and let me go out and find additional products while they're doing the sourcing.
Got it. And and it actually just has me remember that sourcing like that is something that you do. You do workshops in that, where
Yep.
like during like ASD Market Week, the big sourcing event, you run workshops where you show people how to go about it. And what's that like? Well, like, what are those workshops like? How do you typically show someone?
Yeah, so I do workshops around ASD in Vegas, and also in Yiwu, China. We take trips over there and teach people kind of how it's done. And what I have found is the sourcing shows, places like ASD and America's Mart and Yiwu, even Canton Fair. I prefer to go there not necessarily to meet a supplier, but to get ideas, right? So I told you I go to places like Pinterest, Cratejoy, Etsy. I also go to these physical locations, because these physical locations are full of products I would never think to even look for otherwise. And I can also take advantage of the research, the R&D, the investment that these brands have gone into to figure out what product should be trending, right? So big brands that are paying tens of thousands of dollars for one booth at the ASD trade show in Vegas, they're not going in there blindly and just throwing products in the shelves. They know what's trending, what's popular, what's up and coming. So I look at their most prominent shelf positions. I look at the corner spots. I look at what they're focusing on, because they've already done that work for me. And luckily, since Amazon is so slow, Amazon's 18, 24 months slower, than most other platforms and marketing areas for trends. I can find stuff that's becoming popular in mainstream brick and mortar, and I use those trade shows to find it well before Amazon. I can oftentimes go to Amazon and see there's really no product sold under that, category description, but people are actually searching for it using tools like Human 10. When I do that in China, I can kind of double up, because I can go and see millions of products in one day. People think that's an exaggeration. It's not. Millions of products in one day, and now I've got the supplier for it. So I take the idea, I go back and I validate it based on keywords. Are people looking for it? Is it not saturated? And now I have a supplier to go ahead and buy that product from.
Great. And so it sounds like really what the training is you're training people to spot opportunities.
To spot potential opportunities, then validate the opportunities, then launch the opportunities.
Great. Yeah. Spot them, but validate it. And I guess let's talk a little bit about the validation part and how far you typically get into, or how invested you get into a product until you validate that it's actually going to be something that people buy.
Yeah, there's several layers to it. Typically what I'll do is and let me back up for a second and say there are a lot of ways to sell products online. What I'm telling you is not the only way to do it. I was just talking to one of my coaching students this morning, and she's got a product that it doesn't quite get me super excited. Like, It's not really low-hanging fruit, meaning there's a ton of demand with very low competition, but I still think she'll be successful. We talked about different ways to do that. So typically when I validate, I'm looking for that low-hanging fruit. I'm looking for something that has 3,000 or 4,000 searches a month on Amazon, and there's like none on Amazon, right? Sometimes there are things that are a little bit more saturated. There's a few more sellers, but I can differentiate. There's a lot of different ways to come up with the validation. But generally speaking, nothing's going to be perfectly validated. I used an example yesterday of Marfan Syndrome. Do you know what Marfan Syndrome is, Rich?
Yeah.
So it's for those of you that don't know, it's a medical condition that can't 100% be diagnosed. It's a connective tissue disorder, and people like Michael Phelps, the Olympic swimmer, has it. Abraham Lincoln, they think, had it. My wife has it, right? And it's a connective tissue disorder where you have a series of indicators. All right. So one of them is your wingspan is longer than your height. She's 5'9". She has a 6-foot wingspan. Her arms are super long. There are things like loose joints. She has shoulders that have popped out of place, knees that have popped out of place. She had to have surgery to correct that. And the reason they track this is one of your most important connective tissues is around your aorta. So if you have a connective tissue problem, you need to go and get echocardiograms to make sure that your aorta is not dislodging or enlarging, right? So the reason that I use this as an example is because there's not a genetic marker. There's not a blood test that actually qualifies, a diagnosis of Marfan syndrome. So what do? The doctor sits down with you and has a checklist. And they start going through these things. And you might not hit every checkbox, but if you hit enough checkboxes, they go, okay, we can't say with 100% certainty that you have Marfan's, but you hit enough of the qualifying symptoms that we're going to say you have Marfan's.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of the more factors are present, the more of a probability that it's there.
Yes. So when I think about product validation, is this going to work? I never have a crystal ball to say yes or no. There are people out there that have spreadsheets and say, oh, if it checks off, we'll give you a thumbs up or thumbs down. It doesn't always work that way. Like those are good indicators, but there's never definite. So I've never launched a product that I was 1,000% sure would work. But if I have enough of those indicators, I can say, hey, I don't know 100% that I have Marfan's, but we're going to assume I have Marfan's. So the same thing, I don't know 1,000% sure this is going to work, but I've checked off enough boxes that I'm relatively confident, like very confident this is going to work.
Right.
But
Confident
people that are
enough to
waiting
make it a
for
good
that,
investment.
people that are waiting for that definitive yes are never going to move forward. Like you got to crap or get off the pot essentially.
Yeah.
And eventually you have to realize like there's no, magic, 8-ball that's going to tell you this is the product that you're going to make money on. So minimize your risk by going wide but not deep. Try to find 3 or 4 products that you can afford to launch at the same time, and hopefully 2 or 3 of them work. But don't go so deep, especially on your first product, if you really can't afford to lose the money, because your first product you're going to make some mistakes. And what if you picked the wrong one? So make sure that you're not going 100% in. Don't let anybody tell you, oh, I know 100% sure this will work, because there's a lot of factors at play.
Yeah, that's great. So it's like, don't focus on just one product, focus on multiple. And then if you can get, you never get certainty that it's going to be successful, but if you get a high probability and then you multiply that by several products, then you're going to hit with a couple of them.
Exactly.
So that's better than just going all into one product.
Yes.
Great. Hey, let's talk a little bit about IP and the role that it's played in your business.
So the first experience I had with IP got my butt suspended from Amazon. I didn't know what I was doing, but I found a Me Too product that was selling well. It was an emergency hammer, a little orange hammer with 2 metal ends that you use to break out tempered glass car windows. So if you get in a wreck, your door won't open, your car goes in water, you break the window out as a seatbelt cutter. And I saw a guy that was selling these things like crazy for $15. Probably selling 200 units a day. And I could buy them for like 60 cents in China. So I got my buddy to send me over 300. And they are the exact same product as a listing. And I thought, well, I've got the same product. So I shipped them into his listing. And I sold 30 of them in like a matter of hours. Like, I'm going to be rich. So I bought like 5,000 of these things. And as I'm bringing them over, my account, which at the time was doing a lot of wholesale in very large numbers, I think there was about $120,000 in my Amazon account suspended, funds locked up. You've been suspended for IP violations for hijacking a listing, selling counterfeit goods. This is like back to 2015, 2016. Holy crap, what do I do? So I learned quickly that even though I had the same hammer, the same product from the same factory, they had a little brand logo on it. It was a little sticker. And I remember thinking, this sticker doesn't matter. And that sticker was their logo, which is trademark. So I was, even though it was the exact same product, because it didn't have that sticker and it didn't have that trademark, and I was selling that trademark brand, I was a counterfeit seller. That was my first experience with it. I've had some other crazy stuff happen. I've had brands registered and trademarked, of course, that, I went through a few iterations trying to get. At one point, I had filed for a registration of a brand name that was a little bit too generic, we'll say. So it would be like, I'm just trying to find an example. Like, if I was selling this permanent marker, I would have had the brand name something like Ink Forever, right? So Ink Forever permanent markers. Well, the words ink and forever used when you're talking about writing has already been used. It's like too generic. Like, everybody has the word ink and it lasts forever. So
Right.
I actually waited. I didn't get like a good professional trademark service like Goldstein Patent Law to check this out for me. And I just filed for it. And I sat waiting for like a year to get the results back. When I finally got it back, they said, oh no, this name, you can't do it. So
Right.
I've wasted a year. There was another time that we filed for a mark that was similar to that, in that the name was a little too generic, but we had the name within our logo, and within the logo, so we had the logo, the name, and then our domain. So in the logo, www.inkforever.com, we'll say as an example. Trademark got passed, loaded it into Amazon. Amazon actually goes to the USPTO website to pull the exact name. Well, USPTO website had registered it as Ink Forever, www.inkforever.com. So Amazon took our USPTO trademark information and moved it directly in the listing. So one day I woke up to my listing, brand registry, great, and it's Ink Forever, www.inkforever.com, black permanent marker. And I was like, no, because on Amazon you can't have your URL name in it. You can't direct. And Amazon themselves put my domain name into the freaking title because that's what they did. So it was just a robot.
In law, we also call that entrapment.
Yes, and I was like, I need to open a case. Oh crap, I can't open a case because if I open a case, they're gonna go, hey, we have to suspend these guys again. But I'm like, but if I don't open a case, I can't. So I've had a few lessons I've learned with IP.
Nice.
But it's been good because as I've learned it, I've realized how to protect myself, how to find opportunities, how to protect my products, my brand, so I can stop other people from competing with me by putting them in the same situation that I was in when I shouldn't have been competing with these people to begin with.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty great. That's awesome. And I mean, really great information for people that are starting out, people that are looking to launch products. I mean, some great takeaways from this in terms of like looking for trends, validating those trends, looking for the positive factors that show that you are likely to be successful, but diversifying, doing multiple products, having multiple shots at it, because no matter how hard you try, no matter how much experience you have, it's still not guaranteed to be successful. So you have to try different things and learn from great people like you. And I really appreciate you being here. And I'd wondering, so Tim, for people want to learn more about you or possibly work with you, like what's the path toward that?
Yeah, they can track me down on social media, Facebook, but go to privatelabellegion.com. Go to Facebook and type in Private Label Legion. There's a free Facebook group with several thousand members you can join. Stay really, really active as much as I can. On that website, privatelabellegion.com, there's going to be notices for events when events kick back up after the COVID. Come hang out. We do meetups. We do workshops. We take trips to China. I go to India. All sorts of crazy stuff. And then you can also check me out on the podcast AMPM podcast. It's actually owned and kind of hosted and sponsored by Healy and Tim, but they have me be the host. So like back there, you can see my set for AMPM. And I operate kind of independently from Healy and Tim, which is cool. So I get to have on guests that I get to choose. And we focus not just on selling on Amazon, but entrepreneurism in general. So track me down there, AMPM podcast. And then if you're interested in like a coaching program. We have a really cool group mastermind coaching program that's very inexpensive, but a lot of bang for the buck. You can find it at thecenturionleague.com. So it's like the upper echelon of the Legion, right? Thecenturionleague.com. And it's also on the private label Legion website. You can find it there.
Awesome. That's really great. And by the way, that's a really big deal that you're the host of AMPM podcast. There's a major podcast that you took over as host.
When I got that invite. Yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations. That's really amazing. And again, really appreciate you being here. Fantastic information. And hopefully I'll see you soon. Thanks, Tim.
Yes, sir. Great. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web at innovationsandbreakthroughs.com, and we'll see you next time.